One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.
Yesterday in Roy Williams' press conference, there was an exchange with the media. I think it was Pete Thamel, correct me if I'm wrong, about Roy dictating which questions he was going to answer and which ones he wasn't. Does it strike you that this current place in time in college athletics, there's even more, maybe distrust is too strong of a word, but maybe it's not, that there's even more distrust between national media and, premier head coaches than there's ever been?
Well, I think one of the actually good points that Roy hit on yesterday during that press conference was the media landscape is much different now. And, it used to be that if you were a coach in a major college sport, if you knew who was writing for, the New York Times and USA Today and your local papers, that was sort of all you had to deal with for the most part. And I think now, we've got so many different outlets. You've got digital, you've got print, you've got just a lot of different ways and people and angles and things that, have big audiences, but maybe the coaches haven't heard of. So I think it's harder for them in some ways to, kind of figure out where the questions are coming from and how quickly a narrative can build because of social media and because of digital landscape. So I think there is I don't know if it's cautiousness or whatever, but mistrust. In some cases, it's just a different environment, and I don't blame Roy Williams for not liking a lot of the conversation and the way it's gone. He's a little bit thin-skinned, I think, and has been for a long time. But I thought that was a really good point he hit on. Was just like, hey, I don't know who all these people work for anymore. I never talk to them. They never come to practice. So I get it.
Does that change the job responsibilities to a degree of the communication staffer that oversees some of these programs? Or should we even expect the coaches to eventually come around to understanding maybe the new age of media?
Well, I think that the younger generation of coaches in the next, 10 years is going to be much more in tune with all of that because they consume their news the same way, people in their 20s and 30s do. So I think that the younger people, some of them are already head coaches, a lot of them are assistants now. I think they get it and will continue to, populate those big jobs. If you're Roy Williams and you're 60-something years old and you're a few years away from retirement, I don't know why you would put a lot of effort into it. But there's no question that, the sports information directors have to sort of figure out, where things are. And, I think they certainly should be aware of all the different outlets and people who write about the sports and all that stuff. So they don't have easy jobs. I know sometimes coaches are hard to, they don't want to learn necessarily something new. So, I don't know if that's a great answer to that question, but I just think it's something that will kind of happen naturally over time.
Okay, so lastly, if you were running Dan Wolken Advising LLC, what are some ways you would advise head coaches these days and athletic directors these days to effectively interface with the media without coming off as, some of the words, some of the descriptors we hear out there are, evasive or short. What would be some advice you'd have for those types of people on how to effectively gain the trust and strategically interface with key media members around the nation?
Well, I think there's nothing that can replace just good old-fashioned, personal interaction, face-to-face interaction. I think the truth of the matter is, everyone's human. We're human, and the people run the athletic departments are human, and I think it's much harder to to criticize or take shots when you know somebody or you deal with them on a face-to-face personal level. I don't understand why an athletic director or an administrator wouldn't want to, get to know their local reporters and national media, because I think that in my relationships with those types of people, I think we serve as resources for one another in a lot of cases, and I think it's a mutually beneficial type of thing. So, you can strategize all you want about how you envision, running a media operation or what kind of public persona or, how you want to deal with reporters or how you want to control information. I can only tell people that when you get face-to-face with somebody and you build that trust and relationship, I do think that it helps both sides be productive and not, always at odds.
Okay, so what about in the other direction in terms of media members doing their duty as a journalist to be level or analyze the situation appropriately? Has that changed since you've come into the business because of how new media works?
It's interesting as I look back. I'm not that old in this business, but things are so much different now than even when I got in. I just think the fundamentals of reporting never change. The platforms change, the distribution changes, the timeliness of things changes, but the old-fashioned boots on the ground, reporting and building relationships with people, that just never changes. So, I think the people who have a feel for that and know what a story is are always going to, have an advantage and be able to get the information and, build the kinds of relationships you need in this business to report well and get it right as often as you can.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.